welcome to Robert and Ivan. Ivan is Robert's son, and he's coming to Australia as well. And yeah, it's very exciting to have Robert come to Australia for the first time ever, which I can't believe that, in your 50 years of teaching, you've never come to Australia.
Yeah.
But now you're following the path of least resistance and you're coming to Australia. So
Yeah.
it's the time. It's always the perfect time, it seems. Um, so yeah, welcome, Robert. It's really exciting to have you
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for offering to come and meet everyone too, because I know a lot of people are really excited. You know, there's been a lot of buzz when I put a post on Facebook that I'd been in Mexico with you and that I would had an amazing time. A lot of people were like, what? Wow, where? Like, what? Robert's still doing workshops? They didn't even know. And then I said, yeah, he might come to Australia. And, there was a lot of buzz and a lot of interest. So, we've the path of unfolding. We just kept going with it. And here we are. And there's been a lot of questions about the workshops and what workshop should I do and what would be the best one for me. And just, I thought it would be really nice for people just to meet you as well, because I know a lot of people in my community that are here today have read your books. We've done, little mini workshops on your books. We've talked about your books. And so everyone's well aware of Robert Fritz, the amazing Robert Fritz. And I didn't even know what you looked like. You're like this mystery man. And then when I met you, I was like, wow, you're so lovely. So I thought it would be really nice for you to come and like meet everyone and introduce yourself. And I'm sure everyone's got questions they'd love to ask you just about your work and the workshops. So
Great. Well, thanks so much. And let me just say, if you can put your cameras on, please do, because we love to see you in person. And I'm very excited about coming to Australia, and it is my first and will be only time I'm coming. The workshops I'm doing, as you probably know, I'm doing 3 workshops. The first one is called The Path of Least Resistance. It's really based on my book, The Path of Least Resistance. And let me talk about that first. This is a workshop that really is about what the book is about. And what the book is about is this principle that I discovered, which is the underlying structure of anything will determine its behavior. And what that means is that you could try to change your life or change the patterns in your life. But if you don't change the underlying structure, the patterns will return and you'll begin to, even if you manage some change for a while, it'll revert back to where you were. This is why people go on diets and gain weight, lose weight to gain weight. They adopt certain lifestyle changes and they do it for a while and then they fall off the wagon and so on. A lot of people think, oh, it's just your willpower. You have to have more willpower. But it isn't that at all. If you're in a structure that leads to oscillation, meaning at first you accomplish what you want, but then you can't sustain it over time, it's nothing personal. In fact, if I took you out and put someone else in the same structure, they would actually operate exactly the same way. Now, there are 2 tests for knowing whether you have a structure in play. And one is the test of predictability. If I understand your structure and it remains unchanged, I can predict what the patterns will be in your life. And if I understand structure correctly, my prediction will come true because it is the structure following the path of least resistance. The second test of whether you know you've got the structure in place is this. If you cause changes in the structure and then can predict what those changes will produce, new patterns, for example, and that also happens, then you know you really understand the causal structure that's going on. These structures really are invisible because most people don't think structurally, they think situationally. And most of the advice we get in life is situational, not structural. Very few people think in terms of the underlying structures of their lives. So in the path of least resistance, there are 3 basic principles I talked about. The first one is Energy moves where it's easiest for it to go. Energy moves along the path of least resistance. The water in a riverbed follows the path of least resistance. Energy through circuitry follows the path of least resistance. Second principle is the underlying structure will determine what that path of least resistance is. And so it's the riverbed that causes the water to flow the way it does. And if I change the riverbed, if I have engineers come in and they relocate the riverbed, that changes where the water flows. It changes the path of least resistance. So energy moves where it's easiest to go. The underlying structure will determine where it goes, and you can change. The third principle is you can change the underlying structure. And that's what this course really is about. It's really about understanding what are the best underlying structures that you can have in your life that will enable you to live in accordance to your highest aspirations and your deepest values, and really begin to create your life more according to how you want it to be than how the situations often determine it will be. Let me stop there in about this workshop and see if there's any questions at this point about this particular workshop.
And if you want to ask a question, I would just say use the little react button in your Zoom app and just raise your hand using
See
that.
Claire.
You may not be able to see your video.
Yeah.
And
Claire's hand is up.
okay, so Claire can go first, and then anyone else who raises their hand will go after that.
Hi
Terrific.
there. Hi, Robert, and
Hi.
is it Ivan or Ivan? Ivan.
Ivan.
Ivan,
And
yeah.
thanks so much. Thanks so much. Hi, Ivan, and thanks so much, Samala, and for organizing. Yeah, so I've got a question about that workshop. I've got something that clashes with that workshop, and I'm just wondering, and that was the one I wanted to do, the first one, the path of least resistance. And
Yeah.
I was just wondering how necessary is that as a precursor to do one of the other two? One or
It's
two of the
not.
others?
It's not. They're all individual workshops.
Oh, okay.
But if you happen to be able to rearrange whatever it is, I'm sure you will not regret it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very torn between the two things that I've got. And another question I had, I saw your on YouTube the structural kind of session that you did
Consulting
with
channel.
Samara. Yeah, it was so amazing. It was really
Thank you.
amazing to watch. And I was
You
just
know,
wondering, is that mm,
no, let me just say something about that channel. Some of you know about it.
mhm.
Um, I got to tell you the story behind the channel. So one day I'm going through the TV stations and I come across somebody in America who's very famous, a psychologist named Dr. Phil. And I just thought, God, he is terrible. He is just awful. And then I realized, you know what? Nobody has really seen what structural consulting looks like. And so a couple of years ago, I started to record structural consultations and put them in this channel. And the interesting thing about the channel is it's an example of how through structural consulting, a person can have a change of underlying structure, which completely changes their life. And it takes about an hour of understanding what the underlying structures are. And so it's not therapy, and we're certainly not doing pathology, psychopathology, but most people, for most people, they're really often they're in structures that aren't supportive of what they want. And they come by it honestly. I mean, we all grow up in our societies. And so I think that's the reason why I think that channel has been so interesting for so many people is because people have never seen anything like that before. And right now, there are 24 sessions, full sessions on the channel. So thanks
It's
for that.
really
Anything more, Claire, that you wanted to add
Yeah, quick question.
or ask?
Because it was really amazing to see, and I was wondering, is that a part of? Do you do some of that in one of the workshops, or which is it in the path of least resistance? I have one more question as well about it.
Okay. Yeah. In the path of least resistance, I do work with people that way individually. Now, in fundamentals of structural thinking, which is the third workshop I'll be doing, we teach people the basics of how to do that, how to think structurally. Now, that course, since I'm talking about it, is really good for coaches, consultants, business managers, and it's a technical course, meaning that we teach technique. Path of Least Resistance is a transformational course. It really is designed to bring you the latest understanding of structural dynamics to be able to put that into your life. Fundamentals teaches you what are the techniques that I use and that other structural consultants use to understand what's going on in reality and how to understand patterns and how to change them.
And because when you said it's got the latest, the Path of Least Resistance has the latest,
Yeah.
is that kind of as you've kind of updated since the book? And
Yes. Let me tell you one other idea about why I got excited about coming to Australia. When Samala and I started talking in Mexico when she did a course with us, I realized that many of the things that people in Australia were learning were things I created in the 1980s. And it's been a long time since the 1980s, and we haven't stopped, learning and growing and so on. And so I do want to make a point of bringing to Australia the latest in structural dynamics and all the things that we've discovered over the last 40, 50 years. I've been doing this now for 50 years. And certainly in the last 40 years, there's been a tremendous amount of discovery and change in the approach that we take, which is why we're able to use it in all kinds of ways. We use it in third world development. We use it in business management. We use it in personal lives. We use it in artists creating. I mean, there's so many uses to understanding structure. I really think of it as like the math to the science. It's very hard to do science if you don't know math. And structural dynamics really is the math to the science of any kind of change effort that people have. And what was your other question?
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. One more question was, when you did the session with Samala, like it was so amazing to watch. And I know she'd given you some stories or scenarios beforehand, and then you ran it through with her in that session. How long did that take you to prepare for? Like, was that just out of curiosity?
Okay. You're talking about macrostructural patterning.
I guess.
Yeah, which I discovered in 1980, actually. And this is the first thing in structure that I discovered was that people had patterns and they were predictable and so on. Nowadays, I only get one story and I do it in about 10 minutes. But you have to understand that my background is I'm a composer. I have a bachelor's and master's in composition from Bus Conservatory, and I've been a composer my whole life. And so understanding how structure works and what patterns are is something we learn in music school. So when I first discovered patterns, I really understood it from a point of view that I've already had a background in understanding how sonata allegro form worked or other musical forms. So, it doesn't take me very long, but I find it very helpful though. And it's helpful for the client to be able to see their patterns from the standpoint of not trying to change them or correct them, but to create a new one, to understand what are the structural dynamics that give rise to that pattern and what has to change to really create a different pattern.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good talking to you.
Thank you.
I hope you get to come to the Path of Least Resistance. Yeah, I know you'll love it. Okay, who's next?
Kate, want to go?
Yeah. Hi, Robert. Hi, Ivan. Thanks, Samala. This is very cool. Robert, just correct me if I got this wrong, but you said that you could do this and change someone's pattern underneath everything that's their structure that's of their life. Is that like that's a done and dusted thing? Like, is there just that one structure that changes everything, or are there several structures?
There tends to be one predominant structure that changes the person's total direction in their life.
Oh, that
That
sounds
doesn't
good.
mean you don't have other structural dynamics going on in different ways, but it is quite extraordinary. And let me explain to you exactly what the elements are in the structure. So we have dynamic urges. Has a range of things. Dynamic urge could be appetites, but it also impulses, but it also can be aspirations and values, and it also can be vague hopes and longings. And the way that people frame current reality is sometimes they are obsessively detailed, sometimes they conceive overall shapes and patterns, and sometimes they're just completely in some mystery. And now the third element that we often see in structures are the various concepts that people have. And the concepts that they have, they often don't know they have.
Mm.
They're so assumed to be true that they never have a chance to even rethink them to see if they agree with themselves. Now, I describe this somehow in this way. There is the creating business and there's the belief business. In the belief business, it matters what you believe. And the major activity in the belief business is conversion. You know, you believe the right things, good things will happen. You believe the wrong things, bad things will happen. In the creating business, which by the way, a great example of that is the arts and sciences. In the creating business, it doesn't matter what you believe. It matters how well you create. And the proof of that is people in the arts, for example, who have been masters of the creative process have believed all kinds of things. Sometimes people say, oh, there's limiting beliefs and other beliefs. All beliefs are limiting. So what happens in a change of underlying structure is it isn't that the person no longer believes some of the stuff that they believe. It's no longer in the structure. It's independent of the structure. So what you're left with is what I describe, of course, that some of you know about, is structural tension, which is end result in current reality. Here's where I want to be. Here's where I am. And in that structure, there's no place for belief. Completely irrelevant.
Mm.
So now I'm describing it really accurately. And you'd think, well, that's great. Now I know I don't have to do the workshops. I know what he means. Great. Thank you very much. And if it could be that easy, I would say terrific. And I've done my job. But it's really not quite that easy because often the concepts that people have are invisible.
Mm.
And they have other things that are visible, other beliefs that are visible, but the ones that are causally important in structure simply are not. And it's a very individual kind of thing. I can't sort of say, well, here's the belief to look out for, and you all go forth and multiply. It isn't that way at all. You have to really quite understand. And there's evidence, by the way, for what you believe. And the evidence is often found in your patterns.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is why I'm really excited about coming to Australia, is because there's a whole developed technique and discipline of structural dynamics, which in many ways has not been introduced to Australia. We've had a few people come to America, and we've had a few people do courses I've done in Japan from Australia, but not really.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's, does that answer your question, by the way?
Yeah, it's opened up lots more, but if I could just ask this other one, and also there's an age-related thing that makes me curious because it's like you've kind of described the struggle that I've had, and at 70, it's like, is it more set in place than someone who's say 30? But oh damn it, now I've forgotten the other question. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm 82.
oh wow, cool.
And so
Yeah, you've been doing it a long
I'm still
time.
around and kicking, and so can you be.
I'll come
Yeah.
back if I think of my other question.
I think, gosh, when I was 70, I was so young.
Glad to hear it. I feel a bit old sometimes. Thank you. This is very cool.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Good seeing you. Is it Eileen?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
in the structural thinking one, the last course is, are you going to be teaching are we actually going to be learning the patterns? So like, from your experience, is there like eight patterns that most clients fall into, or like how many patterns are there? And
Okay.
We'll be learning the patterns so we can recognize them in other clients,
Okay. Step one in structural thinking is start with nothing. This is why it's so hard to teach. It's not like the typical educational model in which basically you have a database and you do a comparison with what you know with what reality is and try to figure out what things are. Step one is start with nothing. And what that means is we teach you how to understand what you're looking at, not from a frame of reference of anything you've ever seen before, but in its own terms, its own integrity, as it were. And by virtue of that, you really begin to understand the specific mechanisms that are in play in any structure. So it's really we call that original thinking versus comparative thinking. All of our lives, we've been taught to think comparatively. You know, you go to school, you get a database, you know. The implication is it's good to know things. And, you know, it is good to know things. But it's not good to know things when it prevents you from seeing what's right in front of your eyes. And so what we teach you in fundamentals of structural thinking is an entirely different process of how to understand what you're looking at, what it means, how it works, and how to, over time, understand the underlying structures that are in play. So I gave you that answer because it isn't like, okay, there's 6 archetypal structures, patterns, and if you get, you know, this is not like that at all. This is like understanding specifically what's going on in this case. So do you have a follow-up question to that?
No, that's I wanted to know. Yeah, so it's a lot broader than what I was thinking. Okay, thanks.
Well, also it's a lot better too, because you're learning. It's like this. There's actually a discipline that is like this, and it's accounting. Anybody here an accountant? Any accountants here? Okay. If you're an accountant, what happens is you actually have to look at the specific numbers that you're working with. You can't say, you know, you look a lot like the guy I did last week, and he had to only pay this much in taxes, and I'm sure if you pay that much in taxes, you'll be okay. The accountant actually has to look at specific numbers, certainly know mathematics, but from that can really understand directly what's going on in that specific case. And I think this is very much like that as an example of a kind of thinking that's not comparative, which you really have to look at the actual detail and data that is in front of you. Great,
Cool.
thanks.
Thanks.
I remembered my question.
Yeah, okay.
How does, say, childhood trauma or trauma and the nervous system fit into your work?
Well, it's an interesting thing that I want to make a difference between trauma, childhood trauma, as psychopathology, and what most people have, which is not trauma. The idea that we discovered was it's not the person's traumatic experiences they had that they have to relive and release in typical psychology terms or psychotherapy terms. It is rather the conclusions that people make from experiences that they've had. So, for example, if the father leaves the family at an early, and she's at an early age, she might have that experience, but later she won't. But what she still might have is the idea that you can't trust men.
Mm.
And she doesn't even know she has that idea.
Mm.
So then when she tries to get into relationships, well, she's got two things going on at least. One is she really wants to have a good relationship, and the other is you can't trust him. And that often creates an oscillating pattern. So I've given you a really short mini explanation of what the structural dynamics look like. But most often in our experience, it isn't something that's therapeutically demanding. It's something that's a conclusion or conclusions that the person has made. They really aren't true in reality, but they've never thought it through or have seen the evidence about it. Now, if somebody were going through post-traumatic stress or something like that, we would definitely recommend professional help for that. That's not the realm that we're working in.
So does that that underlying structural thingy session that you do change that conclusion? Is that what happens?
No, what it does is look, here I have a tripod. You see 3 legs. Now, if I take one of the legs out of this structure, it'll change the behavior of the tripod. The leg I've taken out doesn't disappear. It's simply no longer in the structure. It's irrelevant. It becomes irrelevant to the structure. So when you try to spend all of your time trying to change your beliefs and so on, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's more the stuff that you don't know is there that is contributing to the way your life goes that kind of fascinates me. You know, the repeating pattern that you're talking about, and you don't even know why you're doing it. So annoying.
Well, actually, though, if you understand it from a structural point of view, you do know why you're doing it. And not only do you know why you're doing it, you can understand what the dynamics are that can change the pattern from an oscillator, like getting out of a rocking chair and going into a car. You know, it's a different structure, works a different way.
Okay. Cool. See you there.
Thank you. Who's next?
Hi, Robert, it's Sue here. Thank you so much for this, and thanks to Ivan and Samala as well. This is really lovely stuff to hear. I'm just curious if is there in your work a parallel or an overlay that would accommodate spiritual expansion? Obviously, a lot of my understanding of your, or limited understanding of your work, is that it's very much to do with changing your current perception of your paradigm that you are currently living in as a reality. And I'm wondering whether the capacity to explore structural expression also allows a metaphysical expansion as well.
Let me put it to you this way. The creative process in structural dynamics is philosophically neutral.
Okay.
It's like everybody can learn how to drive a car no matter what, you know, that doesn't mean you're philosophically neutral. So it doesn't prevent you from exploring spirituality in any particular way. And those areas have their own rewards independent of the underlying structures that you're in. So what you'll find that's different, though, is often people who are pursuing spiritual understandings and experiences run into dogma that says this is the only thing you must believe, and if you don't, you're doomed.
Mm.
And that then becomes a new concept that people take on, which is very limiting, and I think also limits their spiritual experiences because it closes them versus opens them to what might be. I mean, we're not trying to replace one concept with a different concept. And in this sense, it's more like science and music than it is like a belief system. And
Beautiful.
we're not telling you what you should believe or what you shouldn't believe.
Lovely. No, that's awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. That's a
Yeah.
great understanding. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else got a question? I've got some written here I can ask that came in. Oh, we got, is it Janie? You can go. Yeah.
Hi guys. Just been a little driving, sorry. Let me can I just pull over first and then you can I'll actually just one moment. All right, so Robert, my question is regarding the belief and how they play a role in the vision current reality structure. So in the creating structure. So I know that they're independent of the structure. However, they do come up when you are creating. So I know William sort of dissipates them or allows them to fall away by acknowledging them. In your work, do you do the same, or what do you do to enable the beliefs not to come into the creating process?
What our approach is to change the underlying structure that makes them irrelevant. So you don't have to do anything with them. If you really have structural tension, you have an end result, you have current reality. There's no place for belief, is there? Here's what I want, here's what I have. Here's what I want, here's where I am in relationship to what I want. If you learn how to have structural tension be the predominant structure in your life, it's not to say that you won't have various ideas that pop up from time to time. You know, various, I'm no good, I'm not talented, I'm unlovable, you know, all the things that people have. But they have no impact. They have no relevance. You don't have to do anything with them in our work.
Mm-hmm. So when they come up, what like they come up, right? And they can get in the way.
Well, what are you trying to accomplish?
My vision.
Okay, so whatever the vision is, your next step is to understand where you are in relationship to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you really do those two things, whatever comes up is irrelevant to that structural tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, let me sort of describe it this way, and particularly in the path of least resistance as a workshop. One of the goals of that workshop is for you to have a change of underlying structure. And, you know, we're human beings. We have all kinds of ideas about stuff and so on. How can we best be effective? If you have, you know, let me give you this example. They have a team of people that aren't getting along. And so the company says, well, let's send them on a whitewater rafting trip to do team building. So they send these folks off to the whitewater rafts and they fall in love with each other. They work beautifully together. They, you know, over time, they gel. Everything's great. And then they put them back in the original structure they were in. And 6 months later, it's if that never happened. The reason that's so is the underlying structure they were in. All they proved was these people in the right structure can work well together. And in the wrong structure, they can't. So to really understand what the profundity of this principle is, the underlying structure of anything will determine its behavior, is really important because in a way, you're describing something in which there's not really a change of underlying structure. You're still kind of managing circumstantially what's going on versus a real change of underlying structure. And so what the Path of Least Resistance workshop is about is really being able to understand the best way to structure your life in such a way that you're more effective at structural tension.
Mm. So does it come into structural tension, like the tension that you feel when you're trying to create something that you've never created before? Does that, and your beliefs come into it, obviously, and emotions come into it sometimes as well.
They don't.
I know they're relevant, but
They don't. And look, you're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm saying they actually don't come into it.
Okay.
They don't come into it as a factor. You might have they don't come into it as a factor, like any more than you're driving a car right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever beliefs you happen to have or thoughts you have, you know how to drive a car, right? You're going to move from point A to point B. You're not going to drive on the wrong side of the road. You'll stop at the lights. You do all the right stuff, right?
Mm.
Because you know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, do you ever go into your car and say, no, I wonder if I still know how to drive? What if I can't drive today? I bet you don't do that.
For example, today,
Yeah.
I went and did my normal exercise session, right? I normally do that in the mornings. And
Right.
today I didn't feel like doing it.
Good.
But I had to push myself to do it, right? Because I know that every day I do that, I'm in a better space, my day's better.
Yeah. Well, we're going to teach
So,
you how you don't have to push yourself to do that by understanding the relationship of choices to primary and secondary choices. Primary choice is you're exercising because you want to create optimal health. Secondary choice is what do you need to do to, and it's a choice means you can do it or not do it. So whether you feel like it or not is not the question. Will you do it? And what would be the motivation to do it, even if you don't feel like doing it? It's because you want to create this outcome.
Mm.
So this relationship between primary and secondary choice is really important, and it's the key to discipline. So whoever is listening to this, and if you have certain habits that you've got to break or certain habits you've got to develop, this is the key to that, is to really understand in terms of structural tension, what's primary, what's secondary. And you get to decide. I personally don't like to exercise, but I do it. And it's always a secondary choice. And I never want to do it.
I normally like to do it. It's just that today I was like, oh, do I have to do this today?
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. It shouldn't matter whether you happen to like it or don't like it. What matters is, are you taking the actions that support you the most?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's not about pushing you. So what you described is manipulating yourself into the action versus understanding it's a strategic choice that you're making and creating a hierarchy of what's more important and what's less important.
Mm. Nice. It worked though, pushing myself.
Yeah. Anyway, are you going to come to Path of Least Resistance?
I think so. Let's I'll work. Yeah. But thank
I
you.
hope you do.
Thanks for addressing my challenging question. I just thought I had to put it out
No,
there.
I hope you do, not just because I'm trying to get you into the course, but because I think you'll particularly appreciate what you'll learn given your interests.
Hmm. Nice. So you never have to push yourself, Robert, to do your exercise?
No, because I make a secondary choice to a primary choice.
Nice.
Now, it's a choice. In other words, I know I don't have to get in the car and go to the gym. I know I don't have to do that. I don't manipulate myself into it.
Mm.
I know that if I want this result, there's a number of things I've got to do. And I choose to do them on behalf of the bigger deal, the more important outcome I'm after. And I never have to manipulate myself, and I never do.
That's awesome.
But you
Thank
might
you.
have to make that choice again, every morning when you do it.
Oh, I
right?
make it. Yeah. I'm always
Not like you
don't-
make it
yeah.
once.
I don't normally have to make this choice, but today I nearly needed to.
Yeah, but in your life, there might be other things that you'd prefer not to do, but you need to do on behalf of something that's more important to you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
which is, called humanity,
Yeah,
welcome
absolutely.
to the planet Earth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
Beata?
Thanks, Samala. Hi, Robert. Hi, Ivan. I actually want to ask a question about the middle course because there's a lot of questions about the first one, path of least resistance. It's kind of we're all familiar with it. The fundamentals of structural thinking or whatever that one is. The middle one, I don't even remember the name of it, but what I've noticed in our community, a lot of people are kind of saying, oh, it's not for me because I'm not an artist. So I'd love for you to speak to who it's for and perhaps what you cover in that one.
Yeah, it is the art of the creative process, and it is designed primarily for artists of all type. And that is a structural approach toward the arts. We do a number of things. First of all, everybody does everything. So everybody writes, does photography, does movement pieces, plots out screenplays. I mean, we use the arts as a way of understanding how best to use structural dynamics as an artist in creating whatever medium you're creating. I'm, as my whole background, by the way, is the arts. So I'm still a composer. I'm also a filmmaker and blah, blah, blah. I do all these things. And everything I've done actually, in one way or another, comes from music. Now, in that course, we begin by analyzing song lyrics and how the writers of those songs position things in relationship to the structures. And then we give you exercises where you're doing it as well, and we have certain writing exercises that, people, oh, I can't write. Well, yeah, and it's because you went to school and your teacher didn't know how to teach writing because your teacher wasn't a writer. And they gave you a blank piece of paper and they said, go write. Like, what we do is we actually teach you exactly how to write dialogues, how to write other kinds of things from a structural point of view. Now, one of the major understandings that people get from that course when they're doing creative work is how to use structural tension. Let me say this very kind of quickly without having to go into a lot of detail. There are two types of piano technique. One's French and one's Russian. In the French version, you basically push down the keys, and wonderful pianists, it's exactly how they play. And they just push down the keys. The Russian technique is you create tension in your fingers and you release your fingers, and it's the release that creates this almost bell-like tones that you can get from the piano. It takes years and years for people to learn this technique, but it's one of the major piano techniques. Now, in that technique, what you learn is you create tension before you create. And this is what we teach you in this course. No matter what the medium, if you have the proper tension set up, you can actually do it. And if you don't have the actual tension set up properly, you're doing finger painting. You try all kinds of things to see if it works. This is more like a targeted approach than a shotgun approach. And it's really it's something I wish I had when I was in the conservatory, when I was learning how to do all this stuff. And so that's what the course is about. By the way, if you want to read more about it, I have one of my books is about that. It's called Path of Least Resistance for Artists. And that's
Thanks, Robert. But yeah, you expanded on because
it.
I think a lot of people understood it as for painters, as an artist in the terms of painting, sculpture. But you've expanded on it that it's for writers, it's for actors, it's for any form of artistic expression. Yes. Yep.
Musicians, dancers, choreographers, graphic designers.
Right. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
I'll just add to that. I did the living out in Mexico and I freaked out thinking, oh my God, I think I'm in the wrong course because I'm not really doing anything artistic at the moment. But sorry, just let someone in. But I really got an experience. I'm so glad I went, because I really got an experience of the creative process, you know, tension seeks resolution and structure. So it was really good to actually experience it live in a workshop. So doing it through the art in the workshop was a great way to experience it. So that's what I got from it.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just add to that? Because you were saying, Robert, that the FST with you is a bit different to doing it online. Is that right?
Well, it is in one sense that my depth of knowledge about this is pretty deep, and there's a way when you go through it online, you definitely get the entire course, you get the real thing. But there's a way that I tend to teach structural dynamics, which is really a master class, and so that just happens to be the way it is. And I no longer teach that class. So this is an exception to that, because I really wanted to bring that to Australia as well.
Dasha?
Hi, good
Hi.
morning from Perth. Thank you. So my questions, I have a couple. First one is because I'm trying to.
Your mic is muted now.
Yep.
I was trying to find you on the screen because Samala is
Okay.
pinned for some reason. So my question is, I'm navigating through between the different workshops, and I'm curious, what is the outcome? What is the end result for each one? Like, what am I going to leave with? And the other question is, how is it different from the books? Like, is it more in depth? Is it more practical? Like, what am I going to get on top of, like, if instead of reading the book, coming to the workshop? And then I have a question about integration as well.
Okay. It's a very good question about the outcome from each course, because often when I create a course, the very first thing I do is I write down the outcome I want people walking away having experienced. The outcome for the path of least resistance is really a new lease on life, and the ability to have that new lease, to really, no matter what the past has been, to begin to start again, and to really rethink everything that you want in creating your life. So it really is about the life building process. The art of the creator process really is kind of sharing trade secrets with creators. You know, like, they didn't tell you this, but here's how it really goes. And it doesn't take away from what you already know, but it adds to what you already know in terms of the ability to be fluent in using structure in your creative process as an artist. Fundamentals of Structural Thinking really is a technique course for practitioners, for consultants, for coaches, for managers, for people in the helping professions. And the outcome of that is that you will professionally be more capable in serving the people that you work with.
Okay. Can I ask a question before you talk about the difference between the book? So for the first workshop, for me, I've been in self-development since I was 16, and I love my life. I've created my dream life. I run my dream business. I'm successful in all areas. So what would be the point of me doing that? Like, what would I get? I don't want to change my life. It's awesome. So what would I get from that workshop?
Well, I think what you'd get is, no matter what, even if it's great now, you get a new way to rethink the entire premise of it and see if you still want that, or do you want other things that also are important to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Listen, you can get so much from a book. And I certainly do the best I can because when I write a book, the very first thing I do is I describe what I want the reader to walk away with having read the book. And, I do my best to really communicate as much as I can, because for me, that's my legacy. More people will read my books than will ever do a course with me or with somebody I've trained. And so it's very important that my books do the best they can to describe a completely new area of development that really hasn't been very well known in the world. I can read a book about how to play the cello, but cello lessons are a lot better in learning how to play the cello.
Okay, great. And in terms of integration, like what will you give us tools to integrate the knowledge? Because I know sometimes you can go to these workshops and then you have an amazing week and then you kind of forget everything or like.
Well, there's there is a tool, if you want to call it that, that becomes available to you, and it's a 3-month course called Creating Your Life. And what happens in these workshops is they're very compressed. So you learn a lot of things, which then plays out over time. I mean, you don't even know what you've learned at first because it's so compressed and so rich. And so we often recommend that if you like that, you might want to also do Creating Your Life. Creating Your Life has, I don't know, 100 and something. Ivan, you can tell me how many videos it's got. You do a lesson a day. So in the morning, you do 10, 20-minute lesson, and then you work with that principle throughout the day. And that goes for 3.5 months. Ivan, did you want to say anything more about that?
Just that it is excellent way for if you're talking about integration because it's taking what you've learned in such a compressed way and then applying a structure to your life that's daily. And it's over 83 days. I don't know. It's 100 and something videos, but it's really about how long it is, which is a 3-month experience. Once a month we gather with Robert, so we can kind of go over what you're learning, ask questions, that kind of thing. So that's a useful little perk. And overall, it's just a good way of essentially having like if we're talking about instrument and practice, it's a great way of developing some structure around your practice in the creative process.
Yeah, I think that's a good description. So the classes I'm teaching, think of them as master classes, and this as a kind of assimilation of what you've learned.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm doing the Creator Tools course right now with Sunny, and we're loving it. And it's really not that much. It's just, it's just a short little thing in the morning and then a little practical thing, some little experience. But it's really good because even though I might have heard some of the stuff before, I read it in the book, I'm like, okay, now I get it. Like now I understand it and, have an experience. It's really good. I highly recommend it.
And
Claire,
also, just to say, even though I created it, I actually took the course. And so it's not about acquiring knowledge, it's about practice. And when I took the course, it created so much momentum in my life. It was just fantastic. So it's not just about what you learn as principles or information. It really is doing it, same as practicing an instrument. Okay,
Claire? Claire?
Oh, thank you. I don't know if this question might be a bit irrelevant now, so you can tell me if it is, but kind of following on from Jane and Kate's kind of questions, with this structural pattern and discovering the overall structural pattern, is that you have this aha moment, that's it, that's the pattern, and then you're kind of aware when you're in that, and or is it this thing that comes back all the time that you've got to keep climbing out of?
Yeah, that's what I thought when I first discovered and invented it. Oh, just tell people their patterns and they'll stop doing it. So, so what I did, was I put together a 1-day workshop. I had about 40 people there. And the first thing I did was I showed them how to construct their patterns. And the next thing I knew, everybody was really mad and just really very pissed off. And I thought, well, you show them their pattern or stop doing it. They felt doomed. They saw what, one person said, that's my whole life on a piece of paper. They saw that their explanations for why things were happening weren't always correct. There was something else going on underneath that was not obvious. I mean, the morning was I was showing them their oscillating pattern. In the afternoon, I was showing them their advancing pattern. And, but that was my first experience. My idea, this is many, many years ago. You have to understand how much work we've done on this over the time. It took a long time to first be able to describe what was going on in the patterns, and then to really better describe it in such a way that we really got what it is that's causing the predictable pattern. And sometimes these patterns are really weird. Like there'll be an event that happens at step 6 that's completely unexpected, and you can't say, well, it's always this. It's just something you've never expected, except it always happens at step 6. And we don't try to explain why, we just observe that it happens. And we also can understand the underlying causality of the pattern. Remember in the beginning, I said there were 2 tests for understanding patterns. One is predictability, but the other is you can change the pattern. And that's what the underlying work in structural dynamics can do, is to really help create a completely wonderful pattern in which the creative process, structural tension, becomes your orientation and your state of being.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I
mean,
mention
patterns aren't, let me say this one thing and then go. Patterns aren't something to solve. What happens is it's a phenomena that's caused by structure. And you don't try to fix your rocking chair to let it drive downtown. You know, it's a different underlying structure that we want to create that yields the kinds of results that we really want. Go ahead, Ivan.
So we're just kind of at the end of this conversation, but I know that Samala has a couple of questions she wants to ask that were written in, so we'll let that happen. But one question that keeps kind of coming up is just in terms of prerequisites, are these different, courses? You did a nice job of describing all of the different kind of purposes of each one, and I just wanted to reiterate that there really is no, all of these different courses that we're talking about are really complementary to each other. Other than the kind of advanced courses, there's not too much of a hierarchy. It's more of a come and learn different skills for this particular discipline. So really, they're all recommended highly, and so I just wanted to put that out there. And so Samala, did you want to just kind of wrap it up with the last few questions?
Yeah, so there's Becky Howe who can't be here, but she's asking pretty much what other people have asked. She wanted to know the difference between the courses because she's not really a writer. She's written books and she's into leading workshops and not so much coaching, but I think you've pretty much answered that. And I think there's a lady called Elena who's here, and she would like to know your opinion about ongoing coaching support as it's very popular nowadays. So I think that's the only.
Yeah, we train people to be coaches, so we're all for it. And this is it's helpful for many people to have coaches. Now, one of the things that I do in my life when I work with organizations, I also work as an executive coach. So I'll be working with CEOs or senior vice presidents or so on as a coach. And the coaching helps because often people in those positions don't have people they can talk to. They can't talk to their board of directors. They can't talk to the people that work with them. If they're thinking, for example, about making a major change, it might show up in the marketplace and hurt the company. And so from the professional level on the level of executive coaching, totally important and can be so helpful to the clients. On a personal level, it also can be very helpful because people often are benefited by support of that type. I'm benefited by, when I talked about not liking to exercise, there's a coach, there's a trainer, and thank goodness for that. And I avail myself of having that kind of support. So I'm all for it. And if you're in that profession, the fundamentals of structural thinking is unbelievably helpful. Anything
Perfect.
else?
Thank you, Robert.
No, that's any.
Thank you.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. Anyone else got any? Oh, that was Elena's question. Any other questions? Wonderful. And just, yeah, I've had a session with Robert. I was really lucky. It's on YouTube. So sunny. And he had one a few weeks ago, and I've seen him just be like, wow, he's a bit dazed and confused for a few days, but but he's just like, yeah, doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter anymore. And I'm like, he's watching me as well. And I'm just kind of like really unaffected by things that kind of, you know, in my structure that used to affect me. Do you want to quickly ask a question or say anything, Sunny, before you?
Yeah, it's the session is on YouTube, so you can watch it. But I would just say that like the questions that were coming in, especially from Janie as well, like what do you do with the belief? And I can understand where that comes from. A lot of us have those questions, like we have these beliefs, and what do we do with them? But when you see it and when you really acknowledge it, it becomes you can really see that it is an unwanted belief, and once you acknowledge it, it doesn't really come into the structural dynamics at all. Like it's settled there and there, because every time I do something to compensate for that belief, then I'm just trying to resolve my identity. And so that kind of was really the flip that I needed, and I'm so grateful that I had that session, and it just keeps unfolding into more realization. So thank you, Robert. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's been great seeing all of you and having this chat. And, I'm going to be in Australia. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be historical. I really do. It's almost like bringing this thing that I've developed over the last 50 years and having it land where I think it'll do incredible good. So, and thank you, Samala, for setting this whole thing up. And
it's my pleasure. Thanks, Robert. It was a gift to come there, and I was lucky because my coach, I was sitting on the fence going, I don't know if I should go, and my coach told me you got to go. So I'm glad I listened to my coach. The coaches are important. Yeah, it's
okay. And also thanks to Ivan for being here and helping.
Anyway, yeah, thanks everyone for coming, and I look forward to seeing you all there. The early bird tickets finish on the 31st of December, so and you can pay it off too, I think, if you write into Rosalind, so to lock that in. All right, thanks Robert for coming. Thanks for giving us your time. Thanks everyone.
Okay, cheers.
Lots of love.
Bye.
And I'll see you guys later.